a problem. It doesn't usually take this long.
Sorry, it will not allow me to copy and paste. I have to hand type everything in, and it's a big, long stream key with
That's fine.
letters and numbers. We are now live streaming and recording, though.
Okay, all right. Sounds like we're ready to give it a go again. I introduced all the commission members. I don't think that's necessary again. I was just to the point of mentioning that we have a statement about our ethics, and if there's any conflicts, that's on our agenda. All our commissioners are aware of it. If anyone has a conflict, please signify by raising your hand, and seeing none, we will acknowledge that there are no conflicts or appearance of conflicts. Today on the calendar, I guess Mr. Adden knows, if we'd been live, we would have been hearing the Charlotte Panthers Stadium case yesterday, and probably today finishing it. When we had to go virtual due to our COVID-19 restrictions, then we had to continue that case. It's a very complex case and very difficult to do online, and with so many witnesses and exhibits, we had to go virtual, and so we continued that case. We have two cases that we're on today, one from Henderson County, the Ratlatak Inc. case that was continued, and then this case from Mecklenburg County in the matter of Jesse Strauss, 20 Property Tax Commission 0611. County is represented by Mr. Adden, who's been with us obviously many times, and the appellate, Mr. Strauss, is representing himself. Good morning, Mr. Strauss. Hope you're doing well.
Good morning. I am doing well. Hope the same for you.
All right. And I hope you're familiar with the way the commission operates generally. I know that you probably have not experienced it perhaps before, but I hope with the information we sent to you that you have an idea of how we operate, and also what the burden is that you have to meet and their obligation. So let me say at this time that I think from looking at the pretrial order, there are no issues left to be resolved. I do have one preliminary matter I want to ask about before we get into too much of the case. But what we do, Mr. Strauss, is we allow you to have an opening statement, a brief opening statement to tell us kind of about what your case will be about. And then we'll allow the county to do that. And then we'll get into the presentation of your evidence and then go from there. Are there any questions before we start this hearing? Okay.
No.
All right. Mr. Strauss, go ahead and tell us briefly about what your case will be about today.
Sure. Thanks very much to everyone for having me on. Generally, when I receive my property valuation, I take a look at the comparable houses in the neighborhood to see if it matches what the valuation is that's been given to me by the county. And if it doesn't match, then I appeal. And that's the case for this situation, where I appealed based on the fact that I found comparables in the neighborhood that were less than the valuation that the county had assessed. So that's where we are today. We haven't been able to come to an agreement on evaluation. So I've been appealing, and that's why we are here where we are today.
All right. And I believe that I lost my page, but you were contending that the valuation should be what? 835.
Correct.
835,000, and the county has it at 978,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Adden.
Thank you. Yes, this case involves Mecklenburg County Tax Parcel 121-06308, a single-family residence owned by Mr. Strauss, located at 324 McDonald Avenue in Charlotte. The county valued the property as of, this is a 2020 appeal, and the county valued the property as of January 1, 2020 at $978,000. Mr. Strauss appealed that to the Board of Equalization and Review. The board heard the matter on November 17th, 2020, and entered a decision dated December 4th, 2020, determining the value to be $978,000 for tax year 2020. As Mr. Strauss stated, he contends the value should be $835,000. County contends that the BER value of $978,000 should be upheld. Thank you.
All right, we've had the opening statement. Let me ask as a preliminary matter to see if it's part of the problem. I noticed on one of your exhibits, Mr. Strauss, you said your home is 3,650 square feet. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding, but I've seen varying assessments, give or take, 100 square feet. But yeah, that's my understanding. It's in and around that.
Well, the county's property tax says that they're taxing you on 3,944 square feet, which is a pretty considerable difference.
Yeah.
And that could make a difference in the valuation. Mr. Adden, can you enlighten us any on that? Is that where the issue is, or are there other issues?
No, I think the issues are the comparables and all. The differences can very well be the county's measurement of properties is exterior. We don't go in everybody's house, and so there is the county's measurements are on the exterior walls, and that's how it gets to those to the matters. They're on the county property record card. Mr. Strauss's house is rather unique. It's not a box by any way. Means it's got a lot of different rectangles in it, and so there could very well be any difference in value could be based on the fact that he may have had, I don't know where the 3,650 square foot number comes from, whether it comes from his measurements or somebody else's measurements. The county has a diagram showing the different measurements for each part of his property, and the base first floor is 1,535 square feet of finished area, and the upper story that's finished is 2,409 square feet, and that's where you get the 3,900 or so. But the county's numbers, the measurements are sitting there right there on our diagram, and if you went through and measured it and computed everything, you would get that square footage. I don't know where he comes up with the 3,600, but I think the issue's not that. The issue's comps.
Okay, but 300 square feet would make a significant difference in the value on the residence. I would assume. I didn't look to see how much you're using for square footage.
About 38,000.
That would be 38,000.
If it's 127. Bottom right-hand corner of the second page of the county's property record card.
Well,
I used the higher value.
Okay, well, obviously the county has. It's $127 a square foot. Is that what you said too?
Well, that's what I used. I don't know if that's correct, but I used the highest number that's on that page too.
Okay.
The rates are different. The base rate is $76 a square foot, and the upper story finished rate is $64 a square foot.
Okay, well, as we get into it, we'll see if it matters. But I thought if that was just the difference we were dealing with.
If that was an issue, if Mr. Strauss had provided us with a survey or anything showing that was a difference, we'd obviously have resolved this a long time ago.
Okay,
Well, let me say this,
Uh-huh.
that's something I wasn't aware of as the issue. And certainly I have a survey and appraisals, multiple appraisals that show that square footage. So if we need that documentation, I'm happy to provide it. And that may make this easier, like you said. So I was unaware that they were assessing it at close to 4,000 square feet, which it's not.
okay, well, Mr. Adden, that would be something that could be corrected by y'all internally later. Is that correct? If it is.
Yeah, we'd be glad to take a look at that. Yes.
Okay, okay. All right, well, let's go ahead then. And Mr. Adden, you can present your evidence at this time.
Mr. Strauss is trying to present. Sorry. You said Mr. Adden.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Strauss, excuse me. You're muted, I think, Mr. Strauss. There you
Yeah,
go.
sorry about that. So the two pieces of evidence that I have are just comparables that I pulled to determine what I deemed comparable values of the house and the square footage and the neighborhood. Like was previously said, our house is unique, so it's sort of hard to find exact comparables. So I had to really go off of square footage primarily. And so that's what I did was I just pulled a couple examples of houses that I found in the neighborhood that I've submitted as evidence to support the value of 835,000. So that is my evidence, and that's what I've submitted. And I believe you have copies of that.
May I have a question, Mr. Chairman? Don't hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Go ahead, Vice Chairman Wheeler.
Mr. Strauss, you say you used these two examples. How did you arrive at 835?
Based on the value of those homes that I had pulled and others that I had seen when I was doing my research.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, we have those two exhibits, Taxpayers Exhibit 1 and 2. And as I said, I guess I was muted. We will deem all the exhibits admitted. I think according to the pretrial conference, they were all agreed to. Okay, Mr. Strauss, anything else you want us to know about your case?
No, I mean, again, I'm just a homeowner, so I don't have the expertise beyond this. But my understanding is this is how one of the areas that are used to create the valuation of the home. And so, for me, that's what I had access to. This is what I pulled. This is what I go off of, and I've done this in the past, and it's been accepted. So that's my evidence and my supporting evidence and what I'm going with. So. That's all I have for today. So thank you.
Okay. Have you been before the Property Tax Commission before, or is this the first time before you?
In this type of hearing?
Yes.
This is the first time.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Well, and I didn't read it at the beginning, but just so you'll be aware, the cases and the statutes say that ad valorem tax assessments are presumed correct. This is a standard we have to go by. In order to rebut the presumption, the taxpayer must present evidence to show that an arbitrary method of valuation was used, or that an illegal method of valuation was used, and that the assessment substantially exceeds the true value in money of the property. So that's the standard that we have to go by. So you'll be aware. Is there anything else you want us to consider?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Guest. You're muted.
Mr. Strauss, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Guest. Just a couple of questions. for you. So this is a revaluation case effective January 1st, 2020. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I think so. There's so many dates, it's so confusing, so.
Okay. Your taxpayer exhibit number 1, your Zillow printout here says that this house sold on 11/27/17. Your taxpayer exhibit number 2 shows that the property sold on 5/25/18. Do you have any comparable sales that are closer to either the midpoint or end of 2019, closer to the 2020 valuation date?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I looked for those. Obviously, I wanted to get it closer, but again, the house is unique, and to find sort of what I felt matched, a similar square footage and type of home, this was the closest I could get from a date standpoint to the time period in question. So that was just the best I could do.
Do you have any idea when your taxpayer exhibit 1 comparable property was built?
I do not.
Yours was built in 2016, is that correct?
Oh, you're talking about my house?
Your house was built in 2016?
Yes.
You do not know when 2006 Floral Avenue, Charlotte, your taxpayer exhibit number 1 was built?
I do not.
All right. How about your taxpayer exhibit number 2, 500 East Kensington Ave?
I
Do
do
you know when
not.
that was built? Okay. And my last question is, going off of this, and you're basing this on your square footage, did you make any adjustments to either one of these properties to compare that to your property based on building materials, age, any other unique factors?
I did not.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Chairman,
Commissioner Cho, can you hear me?
yes,
Okay.
just to follow up on Commissioner Guest, I'm looking at the information about Floral Avenue. And does that indicate at the bottom left that it was built in 2006? Mr. Strauss, does that indicate that it was built in 2006? Your,
I believe so. If that's what you see, that's what it says. Yes, then I'm not sure 100%.
okay, and then just following up on with Kingston, is it indicated that it was built in 1909?
If that's correct, yes.
Okay, I'm just wondering if I'm looking at the information correctly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Mr. Strauss, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Adden?
Yes, I have a few questions. Mr. Strauss, you didn't use any, what recognized appraisal methods did you use in determining the value of your property?
I did not use any for this.
What recognized appraisal standards did you use?
None.
You're not a certified appraiser, correct?
No, sir.
Don't have any appraisal training?
No.
What evidence did you have that the county violated or deviated from any specific appraisal standard?
Only the comparable homes that I pulled, the value was less than what you had assessed my home at.
And your house was built in 2016, and I believe one of your comps was built in 2006, correct?
Correct.
And the other comp, the Kingston Avenue, was built in 1909 and actually has a historic designation on it, correct?
I'm not familiar with that, but if that's what it says, then yes.
That's what it says on your exhibit B, on your exhibit number 2, home designated historic landmark in 2007. Your home's not historic, is it?
No, it's not.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Strauss, anything else you want us to, you have a chance to come back with any other thing that you didn't get a chance to present or that Mr. Adden raised? Anything else you want us to consider?
No, I just think that if again, we're going to base the assessment on the comparables, that these ought to be taken into consideration. I'm not sure where they came up with their values, but it seems to be high to me. And then also, as you mentioned, and I appreciate you bringing it up, the square footage they used was 300 to 400 more square feet than the actual house has, been surveyed and appraised at. So that'll play into this as well. So I appreciate you considering the evidence and the square footage difference in your decision. So thank you.
Okay, you'll have a chance each to argue, and let's wait and see what Mr. Adden wants to do. Any commissioners have any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Adden, County.
Yeah, the county moves to dismiss the taxpayer's case at the close of its evidence. As the commission knows, the county's ad valorem tax assessment is presumed to be correct. The purpose of this presumption of correctness arises out of the obvious futility of allowing a taxpayer to fix the final value of his property for ad valorem taxation. If the presumption did not attach, then every taxpayer would have unlimited freedom to challenge the valuation placed upon his property, regardless of the merits of such challenge. In order to rebut the presumption, the taxpayer has to present competent material and substantial evidence that shows that the county used either an arbitrary method of valuation or an illegal method of valuation, and that the assessment substantially exceeds true value. I asked him what evidence he had that the county had deviated from any appraisal standards, and he said no. He's presented no evidence that the county used an illegal or an arbitrary method of valuation. As for the square footage, there's no evidence of that the county square footage is wrong. He's presented no evidence, no appraisal, no survey or anything saying that this is the square footage of the house. So that's just a minor inconsistency that's not material, competent, or relevant evidence to refute the county's valuation. As the commission has stated recently in the Larson and the Young decisions, and I provided copies of those decisions to Mr. Strauss a few weeks ago, told him I would probably use those decisions to support the county's value. The commission said in those decisions that taxpayer has to produce evidence that's either prepared by an expert, such as an appraisal, which we do not have here, or has to present evidence using methodology substantially similar to what an expert would do. And of course, what is substantially similar? Substantially similar would be to provide some comparable sales and then make adjustments on those sales to compare the two. An appraiser does as we all know, they'll do a grid. They'll take a sale price of a comparable property and they'll make adjustments. They'll make adjustments for location, for size, for the quality of construction, for the time of the sale, how close it is to the actual valuation date. They'll make adjustments for differences in the properties. There could be differences in the lots. There could be differences in the type of construction. To say that a historic house built in 1909 is similar to his house built in 2016, that's not sufficient evidence at all. He has no evidence. I think Commissioner Guest asked him specifically, did you make any adjustments for differences in the houses? And his answer was no. Under the commission's rulings in Larson and Young and other cases recently, this is clear that the evidence he has presented does not rise to the level of meeting his burden. I would also point out that on his own exhibits, the exhibit 2, where he relies on a sale on Kingston Avenue, his own exhibit says there's some nearby similar sales. There's a sale that occurred in April of 19 for $960,000. And it's a house that's only 2,962 square feet. There was this would be an after the valuation date is a February 5th, 2020 sale of a 2,600 square foot property that went for $995,000. And then there's a 3,200 square foot house that sold in November of 19 for $975,000. Those sales are on the taxpayers' exhibits. 960, 995, 975. Those sales right there support the county's value of $978,000. In order to prevail, he has to prove that the county's value of 978 substantially exceeds true value. And there are 3 sales right there on his own exhibit that refute that the county's value substantially exceeds true value. Under the commission's rulings in Larson and Young, he simply has not met the burden that he is required to meet. So I ask that the case be dismissed. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Strauss, you have an opportunity to speak in response to the county's motion to dismiss for failure to meet your burden.
Sure. I certainly appreciate his response, but I would say this, if the valuation is based on comparable home values and sales in the area, it's completely subjective, right? I mean, who's to say that the comparables that the county pulled are, more accurate than the comparables that I pulled? So he's arguing that the comparables that I pulled are not accurate, but I would argue to say, it's a subjective matter, right? It's what they pull versus what I pulled, and who's to say who's correct? We haven't gone over the comparables that they pulled and when those homes were built. We don't even know how that affects the value. I mean, I think the assumption is being made that a home built in 1916 is not as valuable as a home built in 2016, but who's to say, right? With historic value, we just don't know. So I would just like to state that this is, again, a subjective matter, right? As our appraisals, as our comparables. And, I believe that my comparable should be considered as should the counties. It's not something that they get to just choose. Like he said, the county can't just go run amok making their decisions as well without, they're pulling the comparables that they pull, but we get an opportunity to do that as well. It should be considered on both sides, in my opinion. And so I'd like for that to be considered as well. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Okay, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Questions from any commissioners? All right, seeing none. Okay, our procedure, Mr. Strauss, is that we go into executive session and discuss the county's motion, and then we come back and render a decision. And if we deny that motion, then we go forward with their evidence. Okay, Alexandra, can you put us in executive session?
Yes, sir. Just give me a couple minutes.
All right.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we are all set.
Okay, then we're back in public session again and recording. I see Mr. Adden, and my screen is not showing me Mr. Strauss. To see if I can get another view on my computer. It's changed for some reason.
He's there, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. There is a way I should be able to get this. Okay, I can move it. I see Mr. Strauss now and everyone. All right, Mr. Strauss, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Adden? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, seems like we got everybody back then. The commission is deliberating on the evidence, Mr. Strauss, that you submitted, and the county's motion to dismiss for your failure to meet the burden, as I explained it, and I think Mr. Adden set it out in his motion. The commission has voted unanimously that we have to grant the motion, that you did not meet the burden that's required for you to meet to overcome the county's presumption of correctness. And therefore, we did not get to the counties having to present any evidence. I would point out to you and suggest to you, you get with the county and see if you can resolve the square foot issue, that if you are correct, that would probably make a substantial difference in your valuation. And you indicated you had some figures and appraisals or something that might help show that. So I'm sure Mr. Adden or we'll have somebody with the tax office meet with you to go over that and see if that can be resolved if there is any incorrectness there.
Yeah, Mr. Strauss, if you will email me a copy of the appraisal when you got your mortgage for the property, or that shows the value on that appraisal and the square footage, we'll be glad to take a look at it. But any changes would be not retroactive. They'd be for future years, for 2022. But we'll be glad to take a look at what you have.
Okay.
All righty. Anything else from anybody? Okay, thank y'all very much.
Well, I have a question. Can I ask
Yes,
things before?
sure.
Do I have the opportunity to appeal?
Yes, and that'll be set out. You'll get an order probably within the next 60 days that sets out our decision. And that letter will also tell you about your appeal rights to the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
Okay.
And you do have a right to appeal there. And
Great.
that'll be in that letter you will get with the opinion. Okay, anything else? All right, then we'll go out of our public session as Bendette, and we will stay on for, let's see, well, go ahead and take us out of the public session.
Okay, no problem. Just give me a minute here.